and welcome. I'm Andy Mirchin. You are watching A News. Here are the headlines. Donald Trump hails historic dawn of a new Middle East in the Knesset on a day Benjamin Netanyahu says will be inscribed in history. Scenes of joy as all 20 living hostages reunite with their families. World leaders gather in Sharm el-Sheikh for Gaza Peace Summit. Thank you for tuning in. The U.S. president has left Israel for Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh to attend the Peace Summit, which will see the signing ceremony of the agreement to end the war in Gaza. Donald Trump is running a bit behind schedule following his Knesset visit, as more than 20 world leaders have already gathered. The Egyptian president, who will co-head the summit with Trump, welcomed the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev, Canada's Mark Carney, and a host of other leaders and foreign ministers of Arab, European, and Asian states. The gathering is set to see the official signing of the agreement aimed at ending the war in Gaza. We will bring you more as soon as we have it, but for now, the major news of the day is that all 20 living hostages held by Hamas in Gaza are now back in Israel after more than 2 years in captivity. The footage we are seeing right now is from the Egyptian Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, where the world leaders have gathered ahead of the summit aimed at ending the war in Gaza. Sharm el-Sheikh also hosted the final round of negotiations for the ceasefire agreement, the indirect negotiations between Israel and Hamas on the US-backed and proposed peace plan. Now, back to the 20 living hostages released by Hamas who are now already in Israel. They were handed over to the Red Cross by the militant group before noon local time. All released are receiving medical care and reuniting with their families as they are taken to hospitals for further treatment. Israel also expects to receive the bodies of 28 deceased hostages, but the Hostages and Missing Families Forum says it has been told that only 4 of them will be returned today. Now let's show you some live footage from the hostage square in Tel Aviv, where crowds have gathered since the early morning waiting for the release of all the living hostages. As we have mentioned a bit earlier, the news that only 4 deceased hostages will be handed over today has bittered some of the gathered. Nevertheless, the crowds have erupted in joy as the 2 rounds of releases of living hostages were held before noon local time. Donald Trump hailed the ceasefire and his peace plan as a historic dawn of a new Middle East and the end of the age of terror and death. Addressing the Knesset, he praised American negotiators and regional partners for achieving what he described as a turning point in relations between Israel and Arab nations. Trump said the agreement would reshape the future of the region and open a new era of cooperation.
As partners in peace, and it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East.
As he started his speech in the Israeli parliament, Trump was heckled. Security promptly removed individuals and confiscated banners, including MPs Ayman Odeh and Ofer Kasif, who had raised a poster reading genocide. Let's take a look at what happened.
I know some negotiators that are so good, but you wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East. You would be in World War III right now with some of these guys. Everybody loves Steve, and they respect him, and they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
חבר הכנסת עודה. להוציא את חבר הכנסת עודה. להוציא אותו מהאולם. להוציא אותו מיד. החוצה, החוצה.
Please expel this Knesset member. Please expel this Knesset member. Please expel Knesset member Kasif out of the hall. Please expel him immediately.
That was very efficient.
Ahead of Trump's speech, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the stage, vowing to strengthen Abraham Accords under the leadership of the U.S. president.
I look forward to continuing marching with you on the path we paved together with the Abraham Accords. Under your leadership, we can forge new peace treaties with Arab countries in the region and Muslim countries beyond the region. Abraham's children will work together to build a better future, a future that will unite civilization against barbarism, light against darkness, and hope against despair. And my friends, I believe that with President Trump's leadership, this will happen a lot faster than people think.
Political analyst Tom Gross is in Tel Aviv. Welcome, Tom. Thank you so much for being with us. Before we get to the political messages that we've just heard, let's start with the morning developments. Hamas has released all the living hostages as agreed. The process is ongoing when it comes to the bodies of the deceased hostages. How has this news resonated in Israel?
Well, yes, definitely in the morning, people were ecstatic. It's been a very emotional day. You know, the hostages come from a cross-section of Israeli society. Their parents are things like teachers, secretaries from all different geographic regions, religious, secular. So this really affected the whole of Israel, and people were very, very happy. And also they were relieved that, at least on the face of it, the conditions of the 20 released hostages were not as bad as feared. They could all walk. And indeed, one of them, Alon Ohel, who's a pianist, has even managed to play the piano in hospital this afternoon. So there's relief on that front. But on the other note, Hamas were meant to release 28 bodies of people they murdered in Gaza, hostages they murdered. They've only released 4. They claim they can't find the others, but this is almost certainly a lie, because they said only last week that they knew where the majority were. And it looks like they're playing games, which they've done before. Israel says it's a blatant breach of the agreement by Hamas. And especially for those with religious families, proper burial is extremely important. So, you know, we also see that Hamas has been reasserting itself on the streets of Gaza in areas Israel has left. 7,000 armed Hamas militia appeared on the streets yesterday, and at least 20 Palestinian opponents for Hamas were executed in public view to make it clear to the population who's in control. So Hamas, unfortunately, it doesn't look like they're going to disarm. It doesn't look like the war is over for them. And holding on to dead bodies, and possibly, according to some reports, one of the dead hostages may still be alive. Looks like Hamas are holding on to bargaining chips to keep the war going in some way or other.
Let's move on to the messages that we've heard from the Knesset today. Donald Trump was welcomed with high praise, many rounds of applause. When he did begin his speech, he said that a new dawn is upon the Middle East. Netanyahu and Lapid thanked him for his peace plan. What do you make of the messages from the Israeli parliament?
Yes, it was a very optimistic, upbeat speech by Trump, in which he really did speak of peace rather than war and of resolving conflict. And I think he feels that if he just plants the seeds of peace and optimism, hope will grow. And if he says enough times there can be peace, and he mentioned peace from Iran to Gaza across the Middle East, if he says this enough times and he wills it, it can come about. And, in turn, the Speaker of the Knesset called Trump the President of Peace and said the world needs more Trumps. And, things look quite optimistic. They both did, and also I should add, Trump offered the hands of friendship and future relations with Iran as well. And also Netanyahu made quite a lot of positive promises. He quoted from the Bible, said there's a time for peace and a time for war, and this was the time for peace, and that together with Trump, they would expand on the Abraham Accords and the number of peace deals Israel has with Arab and other Muslim states. So at least on the face of it, this was an optimistic speech by Trump.
There was a brief interruption when one of the MPs held up a paper calling for Trump to recognize Palestine. Another MP picked up a paper that said genocide. They were quickly escorted out of the hall. Now, obviously, two MPs don't make a parliament, but do you see any more calls for Palestinian recognition from within Israel if the ceasefire indeed holds and the peace plan moves ahead?
Well, the two MPs or MKs that were heckled and then were removed from the chamber today are real extremists. Well, the one calling for Palestinian state is a communist, in fact, and he doesn't believe in any states should exist, including Israel. In answer to your question, many people in Israel support a Palestinian state in theory, but they only want a state if it will lead to peace and not to a worse war than the war that has just finished now between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. So it's not a question of belief in a Palestinian state, it's a question of which circumstances. I mean, there are many states that could come into being in the world, but it depends how they'll come into being, whether they'll be that democracies have peaceful intent and so on. So I think it is definitely a bit premature to talk about a Palestinian state, but something down the line is definitely a possibility.
Well, when it comes to circumstances, a lot is yet unknown, including the sticking points of Hamas disarmament and the future governance of Gaza, full Israeli withdrawal from the Strip. Do you see these negotiations moving ahead in a proper fashion, unlike those we've seen collapse during the previous ceasefire, especially now with such strong U.S. involvement?
Well, in theory, this is a much more solid plan than in previous ceasefires that have fallen apart, because many Western and Arab countries have signed on to it, and even countries with which Israel doesn't have relations, like Pakistan and Indonesia, to important Muslim non-Arab countries. And Trump is very involved. So in theory, it should move ahead. But as your question suggested, by asking what Hamas had done to undermine it, the problem is Hamas. Hamas doesn't believe in peace. It doesn't believe in the existence of Israel. It doesn't believe in a non-Islamic Palestinian state. It believes in an Islamic state. And everything in the peace plan, all 20 points, is conditional on Hamas giving up power and giving up arms. And I'm not quite sure how that's going to happen now that Israel has withdrawn. I'm not quite sure that we can see any other peacekeeping force with Egyptians or Indonesians or whatever take on these Hamas gunmen.
Trump's plan does stipulate an international contingent, an international force in the Gaza Strip, as well as a major role for Palestinian for the Palestinian Authority, of course, conditioned on further reforms. Just as we're speaking right now, over in Sharm el-Sheikh, the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, is there for the peace summit. Is the PEA a response, an answer? Would that be welcomed by Israel?
Well, according to the Trump plan, the PA needs to reform itself. It needs to moderate itself. And in that case, it would be welcomed by Israel. Israel doesn't want any armed force on its borders from which it can launch attacks. You know, the last 2 years, it's not just about hostages. Israel has been rocketed or bombed or droned from Lebanon, from Iraq, from Yemen, and most of all from Iran, of course, and most of all from Gaza. For the last 2 years, people have had to run to bomb shelters pretty much every day and night. So they don't mind the Palestinian Authority, Israelis in Gaza, so long as it's properly committed to peace, and that is unclear.
Well, when it comes to a commitment to peace, Netanyahu told Knesset that he is committed to peace. Can Israelis trust Netanyahu?
Well, the society is very divided about Netanyahu, but there will be elections next year. And what I want to say is, in a full-fledged democracy like Israel, politicians have to respond to the electorate. So a previous hardline Likud Prime Minister, Menachem Begin, came in on a hardline promise, having said he will not make peace with Egypt. And a year or two later, Israel and Egypt make peace. They both got the Nobel Peace Prize. That's Begin and Sadat. So I think Netanyahu reacts. Look, he made four peace deals in recent years, the Abraham Accords with UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan, and he wants to make more. So it's not a question of trusting Netanyahu to make peace. Netanyahu's ethos, which was cited by Trump in Trump's speech today, is peace through strength. About 30 years ago, Netanyahu wrote a book called Peace Through Strength. So Netanyahu does believe in peace, but he doesn't believe in appeasement. So he believes in peace with security guarantees, especially for Israel, because even though Israel has had military successes now in the last year or two, it's still a tiny little country, one Jewish state, surrounded by 22 Arab states and about 30 more Muslim states who have much more money and much more arms. So from Israel's point of view, it's not about trusting Netanyahu, it's about, you know, having a strong army and military. And what I want to say is, if there would be a real peace offer there, and Netanyahu wouldn't respond in a positive way, he'll be voted out of office, or in the coalition that always exists in Israel, coalition parties will defect to the opposition who will want peace. The Knesset responds. Netanyahu's not a dictator.
Tom, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your insight.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Just to bring you some news from the ground, Israel's military says the Red Cross is on its way into southern Gaza, where it will be handed several coffins of deceased hostages. Earlier, Hamas's armed Al-Qassam brigade said the bodies of 4 hostages will be handed over today as part of the prisoner exchange with Israel. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum has said only 4 of the 28 bodies of dead hostages will be returned to Israel today. The group has called the update a blatant breach of the agreement with Hamas, which said that all Israeli hostages, alive and dead, will be returned. Now we can bring you some news from the other side. A convoy of buses carrying Palestinian prisoners released by Israel was seen leaving Ketziot prison in southern Israel, bound for Gaza and Ramallah as part of the latest exchange. Crowds lined the streets waving Palestinian flags as released prisoners were welcomed with happiness, tears, and hugs. In the city, they were reunited with their families after 2 years of relentless conflict. Experts warn the released Palestinian prisoners are likely in horrific condition after enduring what has been described as brutal and violent treatment in Israeli jails. Well, we can now bring you some live footage of prisoners arriving in the Palestinian territories. Overall, Israel is releasing 250 Palestinians serving life sentences and more than 1,700 detained Palestinians since the October 7th attacks. The pictures below show freed prisoners being welcomed by crowds in Ramallah, the administrative capital of the Palestinian territories in the West Bank. As the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas holds, Palestinians are returning to their abandoned homes in Gaza City. After the truce started, dozens of aid trucks entered Gaza as Israel reopened the border.
Thousands of displaced Palestinians continue to return to Gaza City, 2 days after the first phase of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas came into effect. Israeli troops pulled back under the first phase of the US brokered agreement to end the war. As they move along Gaza's coast, many anticipate the challenges ahead, as much of their city lies in ruins.
I'm going back, and I'm sure there is no life there. Life is completely non-existent. There won't be water or anything. Here at least the water comes on and off, but there will be nothing. There is no life there. Life will be completely non-existent. We will start putting foundations for ourselves all over again. Definitely there are no homes. What can we do? We don't know what to do.
Many are making the journey home by foot or donkey-pulled cart, unable to afford proper transportation. Their hope is that the peace deal holds.
We're terrified the war will start again. We no longer have money to be displaced, nor have any more money at all. No strength left in our bodies because of hunger, fear, and exhaustion. We have no strength left in us even for walking.
Following the ceasefire, dozens of trucks carrying aid entered Gaza through the Kerem Shalom crossing after Israel reopened the border. Under the agreement, humanitarian aid will be increased and allowed to move freely between northern and southern Gaza along the two main roads. Hundreds of trucks per day are expected to deliver food and medical supplies.
Hamza Ajar Salam, the editor of the Pakistan Daily, is in Lahore and is joining us now to talk on the prisoner release and the broader picture. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, there has been a lot of back and forth with the list of prisoners that were set to be released by Israel. A lot of very known names in the Palestinian community have been reportedly struck from the lists by the Israelis. Nevertheless, how much would you say that these releases mean not only for regular Palestinians, but also further negotiations?
Well, I think it's a great day for diplomacy. It's a great day for peace. And these hostage releases signify an effort towards long-lasting peace and to ensure that the people of Gaza and the people of Israel can live together in harmony with coexistence. So when tensions were so high and there was war crimes happening every day against Palestinian people, I think that such prisoner releases are a welcome step for lasting peace, and they will have a very positive impact for Israel, for Gaza, for the region, and for the entire world.
Well, over in Egypt, among the 20-plus world leaders that have met to speak on peace in Gaza is also Pakistan's Shahbaz Sharif. Recently, the nuclear-armed Islamabad signed a mutual defense pact with Riyadh. Now, with that in mind, do you see Pakistan playing a larger role in the foreseeable future of Gaza, and in which way?
Yes, absolutely. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif just met the Palestinian president in Sharm el-Sheikh a few minutes ago, and the footages have been released to the media. And Pakistan has always supported Palestine and has called for a two-state solution to this conflict. And also, you mentioned the Saudi-Pakistan Mutual Defense Pact. There are many analysts who claim that this pact could be a precursor to Pakistan and Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords. It is President Trump's and Prime Minister Netanyahu's stated goal to ensure that more Muslim countries join the Abraham Accords. And after peace is established in Gaza, it is quite possible that Saudi Arabia and Pakistan both join the Abraham Accords simultaneously. Now, both of these are extremely significant Muslim countries. Pakistan is a nuclear power, so it potentially joining the Abraham Accords could be a game changer for global diplomacy, for the relations between Muslims and Jews across the world. And I think that Pakistan could play a very important role. And with President Trump, he has a very good relationship with the current Pakistani leadership. So, it is expected that Pakistan will play a more important role in Palestine and perhaps even Israel in the times to come.
Do you expect a move on expanding the Abraham Accords now on the summit in Egypt? And what else could we get from this gathering, in your opinion?
I think it is still a bit premature to expect any significant Muslim country joining the Abraham Accords as a part of this peace summit. Hamas is not attending this peace summit. Israel is not attending this peace summit, even though it was expected that Prime Minister Netanyahu would come, but he could not do so because of a Jewish holiday. So I think that these developments are still premature, but it's a great gathering with President Trump as the co-chair. There's representation from several different nations who are stakeholders in this conflict. So I think after the peace deal, this gathering can present a framework for the future of Gaza and what will happen for the people of Gaza, because we've seen that even now the security of the people of Gaza cannot be guaranteed after Israeli forces have withdrawn.
Hamza, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we have a live feed of the U.S. President arriving to Egypt right now. Let's take a look. The Air Force One has landed at near the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, where Trump is set to attend the Gaza Peace Summit. Trump was a bit behind schedule because of his activities in Israel, where he addressed the Knesset as he was on the way. More than 20 world leaders have gathered in Sharm el-Sheikh, including the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Canada's Mark Carney, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev, and a host of other leaders and foreign ministers of other Arab, European, and Asian states. Now, just a reminder, the gathering is set to see the official signing of the agreement aimed at ending the war in Gaza.
Yes.
Well, Hamza, we are back right now. You just heard just some of the leaders who will be there. Among them is Mahmoud Abbas. As you've mentioned, the Israeli Prime Minister will not attend. His office said it was due to a Jewish holiday. Is the presence of PA and not Hamas a signal for things to come?
Well, yes, absolutely. I think that the PA has a very important role to play in the post-war Gaza and post-war Palestine. The PA seems to be the only representative group which actually represents the people of Palestine. And it is very difficult to envision a future of Palestine in which Hamas and other armed groups are in control. They cannot guarantee the security of average Palestinians. Even yesterday, we have seen Hamas members kill a few Palestinian people who they alleged were traitors with Israel. So I think that a group like PA, which is elected, which is somewhat representative of the Palestinian people, has a much larger role to play for the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine. And armed groups which do not draw their power from the support of the people, but rather from the barrel of their gun, should have a minimized role in the future of Palestine if this peace is to last.
Well, when it comes to the day after and the rest of Trump's peace plan, there's supposed to be an international force in the Gaza Strip and a board of peace, which is set to have the former British Prime Minister Tony Blair in it. What are your thoughts on Blair, who led Britain into the Iraq War in 2003, having a major role in the post-war Gaza?
Well, Tony Blair is a controversial figure. As you mentioned in the previous war on Iraq, he was a very vocal proponent. And even at that time, there were very huge marches of hundreds of thousands of people in the UK against Tony Blair. So he is considered a somewhat polarizing figure in the Muslim world. However, he is experienced in such global diplomacy. He has been the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, so he has a nice CV to take this role. But still, I think that from a Muslim point of view, he may not be the most ideal person for this arrangement.
Well, as we continue on speaking, we can see the official cortege of Donald Trump as he is preparing to deboard Air Force One. We'll, of course, keep an eye on that. We see the car with the flags and everything. Hamza, when it comes to this choice of destination, Sharm el-Sheikh has hosted the last round of negotiations. What do you make of the role of these, well, now already traditional intermediaries, Qatar and Egypt, when it comes to settling the Israeli-Palestinian issue?
Well, I think credit needs to be given to the Egyptian leadership, to the Qatari leadership. They have played an integral role to ensure that peace is cemented in Israel and Palestine. And Sharm el-Sheikh has a significant role to play, because even previously we have seen some talks occur there, and Egypt has taken a very responsible view of the Israel-Palestine conflict. You could say that it's a more neutral mediator in this conflict. So Sharm el-Sheikh represents that. It's an optimal place for world leaders to gather. I wish that Prime Minister Netanyahu could have also made it to Sharm el-Sheikh so that these talks could have had more impact and more substance. But regardless, just the fact that President Trump was in Tel Aviv earlier and he has just arrived in Sharm el-Sheikh as we are seeing on our screens, I think that this is a positive omen, and the world is hopeful for lasting peace.
Indeed, Hamza, as we can see, the honor guard has lined up. Officials are heading to the rolled out red carpet to welcome the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, following his visit to the Israeli parliament any minute. Now we are expecting Trump to deboard Air Force One and head to the summit that is, as we can remind our viewers, set to see the signing of an official agreement to end the war in Gaza. Hamza, thank you so much for joining us and providing us with your invaluable insight.
Thank you for having me.
And now let's go to the live footage that we still have from Egypt. Well, the live footage now appears to show a square ahead in front of the resort where the Gaza Peace Summit is being held, or rather is set to start once Donald Trump joins. Well, thank you so much for watching. We'll bring you more as soon as we have it. But for now, stay tuned to A News.